Do you have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Well, hello there and welcome once again to Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. I am John Scholes. Joining me in moments, Lior Samfiru, employment lawyer at EmploymentLawyer.ca. We discuss your employment rights, your employment laws, things you need to know every day. If you're an employee, if you have a job in this province, you've got to know this stuff. That is why we do this show every week. I'm going to tell you right off the start how you get a hold of Lior and his crew anytime you would like. 1-888-861-4555. Ask@EmploymentLawyer.ca is the email. We'll refer to that several times during the show. I can almost guarantee it. And the website, PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. We will tell you how important that is later on in the show. Full of employment law information. There's chances to reach out from the website, and you'll have free and anonymous access to what we call the severance pay calculator. Over 2 million of us have used the severance pay calculator and had your eyes opened wide. We'll get into that later in the show. And all about constructive dismissal. That is the theme for today's show as well. So let's get rolling, Lior. We always start off with the week that was, the case of the day. What do you got cooking, pal?
Hey, John, great to be here. Great to be talking employment law. To have this opportunity to educate people is something I take very seriously. And even over the last week, a lot of people that have watched our show last week called me because they learned something or they had a question or it triggered an issue that they always wanted to have some information on. So if you're wondering about your workplace rights, probably there's a good chance we're going to cover it on the show. And if we don't, reach out to me in the office. Let's have that private chat so I can inform you and help you deal with that issue. It's not always that things are all rosy and great in the workplace. Sometimes it may be that way, but other times there could be problems, or you may be wondering if what your employer is doing is legal and what are your rights, and you may think you don't have good rights. Well, I'm here to tell you, you have good rights. In this province, we have some really excellent employment laws, and on this show, I'm going to help you understand what they are and how they help you and protect you. And a good way to start is a week there was to talk about a case that came across my desk over the past week. Now, John, in the past, we've done shows with the heading was mistakes that even large employers make, because I wanted to convey to everyone that even if you work for a large company, sophisticated company, a company with HR professionals, chances are they're still not doing things right. Chances are you still have entitlements and they may not be telling you about. Well, I have a great example of that right now from this week. I spoke with a gentleman that I work for a very large company. I'm not even going to tell you the name, but a very large employer for 22 years. It's a long period of time. He was let go because of some major restructuring, and the company offered him 30 weeks pay. Now, he actually thought, well, because they probably know what they're doing, it's probably okay. Luckily, his wife told him to call me. And no, it's not okay. Forget about 30 weeks, which is right around 7 months. He was owed about 20 months, anywhere from 18 to 20 months of severance. So right around 3 times, John, 3 times what they offered him. Now, that company really should have done a better job treating a long service and loyal employee. But the lesson here is this: whether you work for a large company, a small company, whether you think that the company has all the resources to do things right, chances are, the same chances, that you still have entitlements, especially if you lost your job. You can't count on the company to enforce your rights. It's your job to enforce your rights, to educate yourself on your rights, to pursue those rights. No one's going to do it for you. Good way to start, of course, is on this show. You can always call me in the office, but make sure you do that.
I want to make you aware as well, guys, EmploymentLawyer.ca, fantastic website. I mean, among other things you can use the website for to reach out to Lior and his team. You can also find the radio station across the country that carries our hour-long radio show. We've been doing that for almost a decade, including Sundays at 1 p.m. right in News Talk 1010. You'll catch Lior and I doing our thing. We get great phone calls. You always contribute to the show. We thank you for that, grabbing that phone call during the show, calling in, asking your questions. We like to cherry pick a few of those calls for this show, talk about them. It's always a good learning experience, right? So we'll get to the first phone call from the radio show right now.
I've been given a package, which I haven't signed yet, And I'm wondering what the process is, because I've gone to the calculator, which indicates that I can actually get more than what has been offered to me. Everything's civilized and everything with my HR. Do I let them know that I've kind of done some homework and show that I'm eligible for more compensation than what you've offered me in the current package?
How long have you worked for this company?
Over 15 years. It's a professional job. I am 46.
Now, he did the right thing. He informed himself. And the chances are, over 90% chance that if you've been let go, it doesn't matter who you work for, you're owed more than what you've been offered. Now, in terms of how you deal with that, yeah, you can try to deal with it yourself. Honestly, I've done this for a long time. Chances are that if you approach the company, they're going to say, no, we think that our package is fine. They're not going to improve it. But there's no downside trying, as long as you're not asking for too little. You don't want to lowball yourself in that situation. But you can approach them. And if you're successful, that's great. Keep in mind, it's not just how many months you're owed, it's also what's included in that. Your salary, your bonus, your benefits, your car allowance, stock options, all of those have to be included. So if you're not successful, then let me have a shot at it. They respond very, very differently to me. But the question then becomes, okay, well, how much severance should this person actually get? He gave us some information. So let's use our severance calculator tool. We're going to go to PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. You could do that at home. It's free and anonymous. Let's plug the information in and let's see how much severance this person should actually be getting, the real amount. So he's a professional, been there for 15 years. He's 46 years of age. You can see he's owed up to 18 months of severance. 18 months. If he's received 18 months, well, as long as all components of compensation are included, we have no problem. If he's received less than that, yes, that's a wrongful dismissal. You can do the same at home. Grab your smartphone, your tablet, or your desktop. Just go to PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. If you've been let go, if you're wondering, if you're just curious, it takes seconds, and you'll have that information that you need.
Good start, but we got to get into a short break here. Upon a return, we'll get into all you need to know about constructive dismissal. So stick around for that. In the meantime, this number, use it all the time, anytime, to reach Lior and his team, 1-888-861-4555 and ask@employmentlawyer.ca. Lots more Ask a Lawyer is on the way. Just stick around.
Do you have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Alrighty, welcome back to Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. John Scholes along with employment lawyer Lior Samfiru. You can reach out anytime, have that phone call, have that private chat, 1-888-861-4555. Ask@employmentlawyer.ca as well. As I mentioned before the break, the main topic for today, always an important one, as is this show. All about constructive dismissal is what we're talking about here, Lior. Question number one, the obvious one. What is a constructive dismissal, right?
So constructive dismissal, one of the things that happens often in the workplace, one of probably the most important things you need to know about. So we all know what a regular dismissal is, right? A dismissal is simply a situation where the company makes the decision, you're not going to work there anymore. They call you into a meeting, they tell you you're gone, and you leave. That is a regular dismissal. We know that. Well, a constructive dismissal is different. A constructive dismissal is not where your employer lets you go. Your employer, in fact, has not let you go. Constructive dismissal happens when the employer did something that makes it difficult for you to continue working. They breached the terms of employment. And because of what your employer did, you're now able to treat that as a termination. So a constructive dismissal is actually initiated by the employee. The employee decides that they've been dismissed because of something the employer did. It's very different than a dismissal, a regular dismissal, when the employer decides and the employee has no say in it. So constructive dismissal, again, something happened. Your employer did something. We'll give you some examples in a second. And because of what that employer did, because of what they treated you or how they dealt with your terms of employment, you're saying, not accepting this. You've terminated my employment. That's a constructive dismissal. Now you have to pay me my severance.
So how do you know when that's happened? When the alarm bells go off, how do you know when you've been constructively dismissed? And scenarios, you mentioned that. Give us a few.
So classic constructive dismissal is where your employer makes significant changes to the terms of your employment. For example, they cut your pay, they demote you, they change your hours, They relocate you far away. When the employer does these these are things that they're not allowed to do. And because of that, because they're not allowed to do, they breach the terms of employment, you can say that's a termination. That's not the deal we had. I'm looking at this now as a termination, Mr. Employer, and you have to pay me my severance. So that's just one example. Another example could be a situation where you're bullied or harassed in the workplace. That makes it difficult to continue working. Who wants to work if you're being harassed and bullied in the workplace? Well, by creating that poison work environment, it's as if your employer has terminated you, or at least gives you that right to consider yourself as being terminated in that situation. So those are some examples, but anytime you're dealing with a significant change to terms of employment, that idea, that concept of constructive dismissal should jump to mind right away.
Another glaring question is, do you get compensation if you're constructively dismissed, right?
So because a constructive dismissal is a dismissal, you get severance like you would with a regular dismissal. So the severance that you get, whether it's 6 months, 18 months, 24 months, you're going to get the same amount in a constructive dismissal. So you can, of course, use our Pocket Employment Lawyer, our severance calculator, PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca, to determine what that severance is. But that amount applies in a constructive dismissal as well. That could be a significant amount, John, up to 2 years of compensation.
You mentioned a bunch of scenarios there. So if you've had a negative change to your job in your workplace, what happens if you decide to keep working there?
Well, sure, you always have that right. So I said, it could be a constructive dismissal, but it doesn't have to be. You can say, well, yes, they did something, they changed my pay, they reduced my pay, but I'm going to continue working, I'm going to be that good soldier. I understand that. The problem here is this. If you've accepted that change, you continue working, you're saying, no, forget about constructive dismissal, not interested, I want to continue working. By doing that, you've given the company the right to do it again and again and again. So this time they changed your pay, they reduced it by, 12%, let's say. Constructive dismissal, but you don't want it to be. You continue working. Well, now you've given them a right to do it again. So next time they reduce it by 12 or 15 or 20%, you won't be able to do anything because you let it happen that first time. So you have to really think about that. If it's a change you're not okay for it to happen again, well, you have to think constructive dismissal. Continuing to work is not a good idea.
What if you think the other way around? Okay, I've been constructively dismissed, I've had it, I'm out of here, and I'm going to come back and get my severance. How does that play out?
Well, that's exactly what happens in a constructive dismissal. You leave and you get your severance. But what I don't want anyone to do is to say, well, I heard Lior on TV and I know it's a constructive dismissal, so I'm packing up right now and leaving. No one leaves, no one, until you speak to me, okay? Because we have to do this correctly. We have to do this right. We have to make sure that we have our I's dotted and T's crossed, that in fact it is a constructive dismissal. So you call me, we find out if it's a constructive dismissal. We talk about how we draft a resignation letter, because we want to say why you're leaving. You're not leaving because you want to play more golf. You're leaving because of what the employer did to you. So we have to be smart about that so that we can maximize the severance that we get.
Again, reach out anytime if anything's confusing. You have questions on your own, 1-888-861-4555 and EmploymentLawyer.ca. Remember that website? You want to go there to find a radio station close to you that carries our long-running radio show, including Sundays, 1 p.m., right? News Talk 1010. You can call in and ask some questions. Your call might make it to this show. We're going to get to phone call number 2 from the radio show right now.
My wife's been employed in retail in a sales position for about 8 years. The last 4 years have been full-time in a management position. She's always received positive feedback. A week ago, she had a new district manager come in who presented her with a discipline letter, and the majority of the letter is subjective in nature. Does my wife have to sign the discipline letters because we feel they want to terminate her out of the position to put somebody else in the position?
So I get this question often. I get a disciplinary letter. They want me to sign it. Do I sign it? So first of all, you want to read the letter carefully. Usually when the company wants you to sign the letter, it's only to acknowledge that you've received it, that you physically were given a copy of the letter. And it's absolutely fine to sign that because you did receive it. You're not lying about that, so that's okay. Now, on the other hand, if they want you to sign to acknowledge that it's correct and it's true, that's very different. Usually that's not the case. What you want to do with a disciplinary letter, if you don't agree with it, if you think there's ulterior motives to it, you want to say so. You want to send an email to your employer saying, that disciplinary letter that you gave me, here's why it's not accurate. Here's why I'm concerned about what you said there. Here's why I didn't actually do what you said. Explain your position. Put it on record. It doesn't matter if the company likes it. It doesn't matter if they even respond. By you responding to that letter, you're protecting your job. You're going to make it a lot harder for the company to even consider letting you go for cause. So it's a smart thing to do. But it's okay to sign the letter simply to acknowledge that you've received a copy of it.
Got to get into another short break here, but when we circle back, I want to get into yet another phone call because they're really good today, so we'll keep them coming at you. In the meantime, reaching out to Lior, I'll give you that number again, 1-888-861-4555. Email is ask@employmentlawyer.ca. This is Ask a Lawyer. Lots more coming up here on CP24.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
And welcome back to Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. John Scholes here, and of course, Lior Samfiru from EmploymentLawyer.ca, answering all the questions every week, making you employment law smarter for sure. And again, News Talk 1010, Sundays at 1 p.m. You'll catch our hour-long radio show. Feel free to join us, call in, ask your questions, be part of the show. And you can do that and reach out as well, 1-888-861-4555, ask@employmentlawyer.ca. Okay, I promised it. Let's do it. Third phone call, Lior, from our radio show is coming up now.
6 years ago, I was hired to do a job, manage a store. For tax purposes, I did like I'm self-employed. A couple of weeks ago, I was told to look for a job with no reason given. I was told you have 2 to 4 weeks to find a job.
Well, listen, let's talk about this idea. For tax purposes, he's an independent contractor. No, it doesn't work that way because it's illegal. That's like saying for tax purposes, I got paid under the table. Well, no, you can't do that because it's not legal. You can't just decide you're an independent contractor. It doesn't matter what you say, what the company says. The law determines if you're an employee or a contractor. And calling yourself a contractor and paying taxes as a contractor does not make you a contractor. He's been misclassified. If he's managing a store or managing a facility, he is an employee of that company. And why is that important? It's important because if he's truly an employee, despite what he thought, he's owed severance. Absolutely, he's owed severance, and now the company has to pay that severance. Of course, the question becomes, well, how much severance does he get? We're going to go once more to our severance calculator. You can find it, of course, at pocketemploymentlawyer.ca, free and anonymous. But let's see how much severance this guy gets. Guess why, John? Because he's an employee.
Right.
So he's a middle manager. He's been there for 6 years. Company gave him 4 weeks notice that he's going to be out of a job. Well, he's actually owed 8 to 9 months of severance. 8 to 9 months. Not difficult to get that. That's what the law provides. And if you've been misclassified, if you truly are an employee, but you've been called a contractor, yeah, you're still owed your full severance.
Going to roll on here, including TV and radio. And being a lawyer, Lior also does a lot of live streaming on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn. You want to contribute and follow at stlawyers.ca, at stlawyers.ca. Lior, here's the question from the live stream for this week. Says, I've been asked to sign an employment contract by the end of the week. I was never asked to sign one 14 years ago when I first started the job. What should I look for before I sign?
Right off the bat, that's bad news. You should have red flashing lights all around it because it's a bad thing. If your employer all of a sudden wants you to sign a new employment agreement, it's never a good thing. There's a reason, and it's not a good reason. So what should you look for? Beyond just your salary and your vacation and bonus, is there a term there that limits your future severance? I bet you there is, and that could cost you tens of thousands of dollars or more down the road. Is there a term that allows the company to put you on a temporary layoff? Company doesn't have a right to put you on a temporary layoff unless you sign an employment agreement that gives them that right. Is there a term there that allows the company to change your job duties, your compensation, your hours of work? Again, company doesn't have a right to do that unless you sign an employment agreement giving them that right. Is there a non-compete, a non-solicit? I can go on, John, but those are just a few things you want to watch out for in that agreement, and it's likely the agreement is going to have all those things. Very problematic. Don't sign an agreement without understanding what you're signing. A good place to start is to send me a copy. Let me read it. Let me tell you what it does so that you don't find out when it's too late that you agreed to a bad deal.
Okay, we'll take one more short break, and on the other side, we'll get to one more email as well. In the meantime, reaching out to Lior, email and phone number 1-888-861-4555 and ask@employmentlawyer.ca. We continue with more Ask a Lawyer. Hang on.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Welcome back to Ask a Lawyer. John Scholes, Lior Samfiru here each week. I want to remind you can reach out to Lior and his team anytime. You're invited to call 1-888-861-4555. Ask@EmploymentLawyer.ca. That's the email address, and that's exactly where we're going to go right now, Lior. Here's the email for today. Another one says, what are your rights if the insurance company ends your long-term disability benefits after 2 years, but your employer says they don't want to put you back to work? Should you appeal the insurer's denial? You know where that's going.
Oh, gosh. So let's be clear here that the insurance company is usually in the business of trying to get you off their payroll. And usually after 2 years, if you're lucky, sometimes it could be sooner, they'll say, well, no, we think you can go back to some occupation, so we're going to cut you off your disability benefits. Well, not so fast. Appealing it is a waste of time because you're just appealing to the same people that have already decided that. It's just a false way to try to give you some hope when they know what the answer is. So no, the appeal doesn't work. What does work is to push the insurance company to understand that they're not going to get away with it. We have a whole team at the office dealing exclusively with this issue, whose job is to get the insurance company to keep you on benefits or to get your compensation if you're cut off these benefits. And guess what? They do that really, really well, and the insurance company backs off once they hear from us. So that going through the appeal process, honestly, is a waste of time. But now turning our attention to the employer. Your employer ultimately has to do what your doctor says. If your doctor says you can't work, then your employer has to allow you to be off work. If your doctor says you can work, they have to take you back. If your doctor says you need accommodation, then they have to accommodate you, modified duties, modified hours. So to deal with your employer is your doctor. To deal with the insurance company that has cut you off, for that you need help. To try to appeal it is a waste of time, so happy to help you if you need that help.
And we are done for another week. I want to remind you that next week, top employment law issues to look out for later in 2023, but that's coming up next week. In the meantime, you can always catch this show, Ask a Lawyer. Go to cp24.com/Ask a Lawyer, and you can reach out to Lior. The phone number, first, of course, 1-888-861-4555. That email address we just pulled from is ask@employmentlawyer.ca and pocket@employmentlawyer.ca. It's free, it's anonymous, it was constructed all about helping you, and you'll have access to the severance pay calculator as well. We'll catch you next time on Ask a Lawyer.